Today's guest was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer. Specialists said these are not the scans of a person who lives, and today she joins us cancer-free. Welcome back to Return to Eden. I'm Kendra Hand, fitness and nutrition specialist, here today with Jamie Woodle, integrative nutrition health coach and master of health science education, as well as our special guest, Lynette Hill. So, Lynette, you've written this book, Overcoming Cancer, and honestly, I could not put it down. And one of the things that I really appreciate is how vulnerable you're willing to be and just open about this experience. Could you go a little deeper and tell us what it was like getting that diagnosis in that moment?
It felt like a Mack truck ran through my house and ran over my husband and I. Because when I was diagnosed, my husband and I were actually in the bedroom at the time getting ready to sit down and watch a movie. And we got the call from my doctor, and it was 7:30 in the evening. And we were waiting to see what was going to come from my scans that I was having. And when it was 7:30 in the evening, I looked at my husband and I said, this is not good, because my doctor does not call me after hours. So I put him on speakerphone, and he says, Lynette, and his voice was shaking, so I knew it wasn't good news that he was trying to tell me. And he said, your scans came back, and I'm sorry to tell you that you have cancer. And we just went white. I mean, we were just in shock, literally like a truck hit us, took our breath away.
I can't even imagine how harrowing the entire experience must have been for you and for your whole family. You're a mother too, right?
Yes, I'm a mother of 5 amazing boys, and I was never sick. And so I'm thinking with the scans that it was going to come, oh, you've got this little issue, quick fix, we'll give you this medication. Never in a million years did I dream it would be a cancer diagnosis.
And for our viewers at home, what led you to the doctor in the first place?
So I was always consistent going to the bathroom. And for some reason, a couple days went by and I had not had a bowel movement. And I was like, well, that's not like me. So I called one of my sons, who was actually one of my foster kids, because we fostered teenage boys for over 10 years. And several of them still come to our house all the time. And this is one of them. And he came to live with us when he was going to nursing school, and he became a nurse. So I called him and I said, Victor, I can't go to the bathroom. He goes, oh, Mom, sometimes when you get older, you get impacted. Go to Walgreens, pick up this thing, it'll flush you out. And a couple of days later, couldn't go to the bathroom. I was like, no, I know my body. Something is not right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so after the diagnosis, it turns out with the cancer through my body, I also had a 12-centimeter mass on my ovaries, and it was pushing against my colon, and that was stopping me from going to the bathroom.
Wow. And I find it interesting, at one point in the book, you're talking about this 12-centimeter mass and trying to come to terms with the fact that this is something that is inside of your body and kind of scale that for the purpose of understanding. 10 centimeters is what you have to be dilated to give birth.
Right.
And that feels massive.
Yes.
I would have no way, no frame of reference to be able to comprehend what a 12-centimeter mass would look like. Can you talk a little bit about the feelings you had when you were looking at those scans and when the specialist is trying to point everything out to you? Because that was so impacting in your book.
When she was going through the scans, my husband and I were sitting there with her, and she's looking at the scans, and then she turns the screen towards us, and you just see everywhere it's just black, and I'm looking at it. And actually, it was my husband that asked the question, because I was too scared to ask. He says, how much time does she have? Because of how bad it looked. And she said to him, we're not going to talk about time right now. We're just going to see what we can do to give her a quality of life. And fast forward, they didn't even believe that, because they already had me scheduled for palliative care. And then after that comes hospice, because that's how bad it was. But to go back to what you were saying about the 12-centimeter mass, my kids, they were asking me, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because they couldn't wrap around it. And I said, well, you know how a woman have to dilate to put her big head out? Well, this is a little bit bigger than that. And so then they were just even more devastated because this is sitting inside of me like a time bomb.
Right. I mean, I've had to give my children extremely difficult news. And as I was reading through this book again last night, just remembering the moment of looking at your child and having to give them horrible news and watching them pick up that burden is just so, what strength it takes to have had that conversation, because you talk in your book about having to make those phone calls. And then after you were correctly diagnosed, redoing that in a sense. And I can't imagine the strength it must have taken you in those moments and how just exhausted you must have felt.
Exhausting. And I'm glad you brought that up, because at first they thought it was ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
Because of the 12 centimeter mass on my ovaries. But then after they scheduled me to go to the ovarian specialist, which I didn't know there was a specialist for every different type of cancer, I was learning so much during this journey. The ovarian doctor, the oncologist, looked at it and she says, I don't think you have ovarian cancer. In a brief moment, I was just relieved, like, oh, maybe they were wrong.
Right.
She says, no, I think this is breast cancer that metastasized through your body, because ovarian cancer doesn't act like this. It doesn't go up. And so then I was referred to a breast cancer specialist who confirmed, yes, it's stored in your breast and metastasized through your body. So then it was just another devastating, okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.
The hits just keep on coming.
Yeah.
But so we've talked about some of the negatives when it comes to all of the hits that just keep coming with your diagnosis. What are some coping skills that you were utilizing at that time? Can we talk a little bit about Warrior Lynette and your alligator skin? Because that was something I personally identified with, and I know I utilize that similar verbiage with my daughter.
Yeah. So the alligator skin that you were mentioning that came out of my book, without going into too much detail, I came up in a household that was quite traumatic. And so it caused me to start putting on alligator skin so I wouldn't be so affected by the hurt and the trauma.
So like thick skin.
But thick skin. Thank you. That's a perfect way to put it. And so I've always grown up to be a very strong, independent person. And with my husband, and he could tell you this, when we first met, he's both strong-willed, I'm strong-willed. So it was like, so when I got that diagnosis, it was probably the first time in my life that I felt crushed. Like I just didn't know what I was going to do, because so many thoughts are going through your head. When am I going to die? Not am I going to die? When am I going to die, based on what she's telling me? And so I had this horrific cry by myself. And I was one of those people that I never let my boys see me cry. And for your viewers watching this, if you're a woman, my advice, let your children see you cry. Because I was such a strong mom that they didn't know what to do when I was falling apart and crying, because they've always known me to be this iron woman.
Their pillar.
Exactly. And so I would cry in the shower because it would just wash away your tears, right? So they never saw that. So when they saw me falling apart, I knew that I had to be strong because they were falling apart. And as a mom, you want to fix your children.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, no, you cannot cry, because then I want to fix you. So I have to be able to focus on my health and my healing. And so I just had my big girl cry, and then I said, okay, what are you going to do with that? You've got to figure out how you're going to get through this. And the first thing I did, because I didn't know any better, was to jump into the treatment, because I thought that's going to help me get better. Yeah.
Well, and we're conditioned to think of Western medicine as the be-all, end-all of health and wellness. And in a lot of ways, the way that our children are educated, there's almost a willful removal of our ability to use God's medicine, as you refer to it in your book, which is something that has struck me as odd, but always just been in the back of my mind, because it never really applied to me personally. But I have people who I love so dearly who are very capable and intelligent and doing a wonderful job of educating themselves and shedding light on, you know, the long-term consequences of these short-term decisions we make in the name of convenience or societal norms. I mean,
Right.
we were discussing the sugar situation earlier
Yeah.
and how society, it's almost like you're the weird one if you don't participate in these unhealthy activities.
Right.
And along those lines, your lifestyle prior to your diagnosis was all about being healthy. Am I right?
Yes. So when I came to this country, and I don't know if it was the different foods, I was always getting migraines. Always getting migraines. I don't know why. I would, take the Tylenol, I would take this, and it just wasn't helping. And about my 35th year, I had this epiphany to stop eating animal products. And I completely stopped eating everything. And not only did my migraines go away, I never had another headache after that. And so I was eating healthy in my mind. And then I ran across a book that was given to me from an amazing gentleman called Joe Horn. And the book is called Timebomb. And when I read that book, honestly, it made me upset because I'm reading this and I'm like, all this time I was going to the grocery store buying what I thought was healthy foods. I was eating pesticides for 25 years because I wasn't buying organic.
Right.
I was just buying whatever the box grocery stores had.
Yeah.
And, there's environmental factors. There's all kinds of other things that could cause that. But to me, that was such a huge thing because every day I was eating non-organic foods. And so that really was a turning point for me to try to veer away from that and start back with only healthy eating. And you brought up a good point about sugar earlier in diet, because now that I eat healthy, people think I'm on a diet. That's the right way that we're supposed to.
It is.
But
But it didn't start that way until after your, we'll call them trials.
yes,
So
because during that deep dive is when I came across his book. And that's when I started changing everything.
But you went through literal torture before you reached that point. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
So because I had never been in doctor's offices, didn't have any comorbidities, I only went to the hospital to have my 5 amazing boys. My body didn't know medication. And so to start taking this harsh treatment of chemo, every side effect listed on that, count me in. That was me.
Wow.
Immediately, my body started to spiral. I got diarrhea and vomiting at the same time. I'm on the toilet and I got a trash can in front of me. It was just everyday constant. And because of that, I was constantly dehydrated. So I'd be rushed to the hospital to get hydration, and my hemoglobin kept dropping. So I'd be rushed to the hospital for blood transfusions. It was one thing after another. Then I got mouth sores so bad in my mouth. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't eat. I lost 111 pounds in 6 months.
Wow.
It was just, my poor husband and my family just went through everything. And as I mentioned, my sister is a nurse. I mentioned that on a previous show. And she's seen death. She knows what it looks like. And her husband, she told me, planned my funeral 7 times because she would walk into my room and watch how emaciated I'd become. Eyes yellow, hair gone, skin and bones, and she was scared to death. So it was a horrible journey.
Now, on top of all of the side effects, the very unlucky one, you also developed an infection while you were in the hospital. Is that right?
That's correct. When I went to the hospital with my organs starting to shut down, that's when they told my husband I wasn't going to make it, and that was during Thanksgiving of 2021. And he couldn't go with me because it was COVID protocols. So, and I knew I was dying. I knew that morning when I got up, something was way off. And I just knew it wasn't good, whatever it was. And when I got to the doctor's office and they took my blood pressure, it was 60/40. And they told my husband her organs are starting to shut down. I don't know if she's going to make it. I was rushed to ICU. Thank God I made it out of that. But I was in the hospital for 3 weeks after that. I don't know where I contracted C. diff because I wasn't around anyone in the hospital, but there's so much things going around the hospital at that time. And everyone came in with masks and everything anyway normally because of the COVID protocol. But because I had C. diff, they came in full hazmat gear because it is not only a bacterial infection, but it's very deadly, can be deadly, and it's contagious. So when I was released from the hospital, I still had it. So my husband is actually having to change my diapers. And my sister kept telling him, John, this is very infectious. You have to wear a mask and gloves and all that. He's like, it's my wife. I'm not going to do all that. And so I was so scared for him because he's doing that without all of the protection. But praise God, we made it through that. And he's
I'm scared for him, but also for you as this powerful, independent woman that you so clearly are. I imagine that was an incredibly difficult part of the journey, to have to be the person who is cared for rather than the person who is doing the caring.
right.
I can't even imagine what it would be like to have to do that.
And Kendra, you have experience in hospice and palliative care.
Yeah, so I worked in residential care facilities for many, many years. My heart was in geriatric care and hospice care for a very, very long time, up until I came here, actually. And I will say there are foods to this day that I cannot cook or consume in my home because of the similarity in texture and smell to C. diff. That is an infection that once you have seen it once, you never forget that experience. And highly contagious just doesn't even feel big enough. I mean, hazmat suits when, gosh, this was back in like 2007, 2008 maybe, the first time I interacted with C. diff. And I mean, what a man, what a love that must be to be able to be there for you every step of the way and know this is my wife and I'm going to take care of this. And I'm just so grateful that you have that and that you both have that, actually.
Yes. Yeah, he was amazing, but he's also very stoic and very, brave. But I could see through this journey, as much as him and my boys tried to hide it, when they would come into the room and watch me laying there, their face immediately changed and it became a mirror. And I could see how afraid they were and how they didn't know. It was like a clicking time bomb.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about, when my husband would go to Home Depot or some hardware store just to keep his mind sane enough. And there were people standing in line that had no idea that this man just got through changing his wife's diapers and was begging God to save her life because he didn't know as he got on his way home if I was going to pass because of how bad it was.
And that just goes to show we don't know the story of the people around us. Maybe that person behind you that's huffing and in a hurry and is a little bit abrasive. You don't know. Maybe they're trying to rush home to a loved one that they're hoping is still breathing.
Yeah.
And so what do you call that in your book? Just the power of kindness?
Yes, I always say it takes nothing to be kind. And I've mentioned this before that, we say that all the time. It takes nothing to be kind. But truly, it doesn't, because you don't know what someone's going through. I was telling Mr. Horn at some point that cancer, as weird as this sound, is one of the best things that happened to me because it just gave me a heightened sense of my sixth senses. I see everything different now. I appreciate everything. I appreciate how gorgeous you look. I appreciate how gorgeous you look. And everything is heightened for me. And so when I see people, I love them. I love them with the pure love of Christ. And I just want to hug them. I just want them to know it's going to be okay and that God is with us. And that's one of the reasons I shared my journey is no matter what you're going through, how hard it is, God stands with you in the storm. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think, God, where are you? And I ask that question. But he stands with you in the storm. And I just want people to know that through my journey.
So clearly you've been through the worst of times, literally. Literal hell on earth, if I could say that. But something changed. What was your turning point? Because clearly you're still here and radiant as ever as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the turning point for me was when I was bedridden. My husband's changing my diapers. I'm in a wheelchair. They have to push me all around. I have two sons that's still at home. One is in the Air Force and the other one's going to school. But he's home because he's based in our town. And he would have to pick up his mom's frail body and put her on the bed. And just what was happening to my family and my sisters putting their life on hold and coming to the house and making sure that my husband is getting help. And at one point, I was so frail that they actually put me on a TPN, which is IV, where you are getting nutrition through your IV. So my sister, the nurse, would come over several times a day to help my husband change it out to make sure it's clean so the port area didn't get infected. And I'm watching this chaotic scene, and I literally said to God, this cannot be how I heal. There has to be something different. I can't do this. I can't put my family through this. Because I was bedridden, had nothing else to do, and I didn't Google how to cure naturally because I didn't know about God's medicine. Even though I grew up in the islands, and when we were sick, my grandmother would go pull something off a tree or something out of the ground, and we never went to the doctor. It just didn't click because you're little and you're not connecting that. But I just Googled people that heal their cancer. That's it. That was where I started. And I followed every story, every link, every research paper, just on and on. So I read all these stories of people that were using natural medicine, what I call God's medicine now, and they were putting themselves in remission. They were getting their life back. One gentleman talked about his mother. She was sent home to get her affairs in order, and he's like, this is my mom. I got to do something. So he researched turkey tail mushrooms, and I think it was 2 capsules a day on the how to use it. He was giving her 5 capsules in the morning, 5 capsules at night because he had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
She was sent home to die. And he brought her up on stage and he says, it's been 5 years and here she is. And she's completely fine. But I tabled that because my spirit wasn't taking me to that.
Yeah.
So I just kept researching it. As I researched more and did more of a deep dive and found on our very own National Institute of Health, our NIH website, that the things that I was gearing towards, it had scientific reports that backed what it did for illnesses and diseases. And when I made the decision that I was going to do this, this was my literal prayer to God. I said, I'm going to go with the things that you created on this earth, and I'm going to stop all my treatment. Either you heal me or take me home, because I'm not doing this and I'm not putting my husband through this. And that was my turning point.
Wow. What a beautiful moment. And one of the things that I read several times is about your physical therapist, the tiny drill sergeant. That just made me laugh.
That's a great
but those moments, the internal conversations that you refer to just inspire me tremendously. The conversations, because I think we all do that and have those conversations, like the fearful version of ourselves and the faith-filled versions of ourselves, and finding a balance between those two. And it was a beautiful book. It was absolutely beautiful. And I am so inspired by your story and your strength, and just the peace that emanates from you is a beautiful thing to witness.
To me, this is how you know that God was in this story, because I've met so many people now throughout this journey that, are in remission using Western medicine, and they are still dealing with the pain of the medicine. They still look a lot of times like they're still sick. But the way I look now, I know that this is God's healing, because how perfect is that? When He heals, He heals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At what point, when you started to make these changes, now, did you start with these things you were researching? Did you make diet modifications?
Absolutely. So for me, because our body is the temple of God and God created everything on this earth for us, I knew that I couldn't take God's medicine and still eat horrible or still eat pesticides or non-organic things. So I completely changed my diet. I cut out processed foods. I cut out all fast foods, processed sugars, and I just have the cleanest diet, which drives my husband crazy, because it's like, well, you used to eat this stuff, and yeah, look what it got me, honey. I'm not going to eat that anymore. He's very kind, and when he goes places, he likes to buy me fruit. And he came home the other day with a watermelon, and he cut it open, and I said, that's not seeded. I'm not eating that.
It's hard to find. Yeah, it is seeded watermelon.
Yes, it is. He says, oh my gosh. He ate all that he can. Then we have turtles, and I gave the rest to my turtles. Yes, you have to change your diet. You cannot think you're going to get well by continuing the way you used to do. It has to be a change.
So if you had one piece of advice Is that what it would be? Just clean eating, vegetarian diet? I mean, what about those of us who are highly carnivorous? Is that something?
I believe you can still eat meat. I've just never been one that liked a lot of meat, but that's just my own personal choice. But if you can find, organic chicken or grass-fed, and be careful when it says grass-fed, because some things say grass-fed, but then it says grain finished. So you have to make sure it's 100% grass-fed.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think we should there's a scripture in the Bible, and I can't remember it. It says that we should eat things sparingly. So if you eat meat, don't eat it 3 meals a day.
Right.
Just eat it sparingly just to get your protein.
It's about balance then.
Exactly.
Well, when you look at the blue zones, they don't eat a lot of meat. They eat a very largely plant-based type of lifestyle and have sparingly meat.
Yeah.
And they eat locally sourced foods. I think that has something to do with it also, because, they're eating things that are grown from the land that they're living on.
Right. Like, I love fish, but I won't buy fish at the store because I don't know where it came from or how long it's been held. But my husband, thank God, loves to go fishing. So he'll go fishing and get me a fresh bass out of the lake, and I'll gut it up and stir fry it with my olive oil. And that I will, put it over rice. And when I eat now, I eat a child-sized portion. The portions that we eat, that's too much.
No, that's something actually, because I am really bad at you referred to it as an elimination diet, where you just totally remove one thing, and I'm not very good at doing that for myself. So portion control is what I usually turn to when I start to notice myself going off track or I feel very lethargic. So definitely moderation.
Absolutely.
Eating the rainbow, as you have suggested in a previous
That's
quote.
imperative to be healthy. Now, she did make more changes than just her diet, which is in your book. And how long after you implemented these diet and lifestyle changes did you start to think maybe this is pushing the needle in the right direction?
Because I started to get my appetite back, my mind started clearing because I was in such a fog during this whole time. But I noticed my mind started clearing. But the big change that I knew something was happening is, as I mentioned previously, the 12 centimeter mass that crushed my colon that I couldn't go to the bathroom. About 3 months into using it, I had this urge to go to the bathroom. I was like, and I hadn't taken any fiber, Metamucil, any of that. And I went to the bathroom and I had a normal bowel movement. I thought, I could poop. Hallelujah. But you can't see what's going on inside of your body.
Right.
So 3 months later, when I had my scan, the doctor said to me, Lynette, your 12 centimeter mass is gone. Gone. So I knew it was working. And then 6 months after that, when I had my scan, she says, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because you have no more cancer. This from the same lady that told my husband her scans are not the scans of someone that lives.
That's Dr. Ibrahim that you refer to. What was that conversation like? And did you ever get the opportunity to divulge to her what had actually moved that needle, so to speak?
Yes, later on I did, because she stared at the screen for a while because I think she almost couldn't believe it. And then she says, whatever you're doing, Lynette, keep doing it because you have no more cancer. But she didn't ask me what I was doing. And so several months later, because I still go in for lab work, blood work, because according to the medical, there's no cure for stage 4. So I still have to go in and do lab work to make sure nothing's coming back. And anyway, I already claimed my healing. It's done. But she said to me, I notice you haven't taken any chemo because I get a special chemo pill from a specialty pharmacy that's mailed to my home. And I told her at that point, I haven't taken chemo for over a year. And she looked at me and she immediately scheduled a scan because she thought, oh my gosh, she hasn't taken chemo. And what she told me later on is that when we give people a 5-year protocol, we hope after the 5 years, 2 or 5 years, mine was 5, you go into remission, you ring the bell because you're in remission. But if you stop that protocol before that 5 year is up, they tell you your cancer will come back. And it'll come back within 3 to 6 months with a vengeance. So the fact that I didn't take it for over a year, she knew my cancer had come back. So she scheduled a scan for me. And January this year of 2024, she called me into her office And she said, "You're upending everything I know." And I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "I knew when you told me you stopped chemo that your cancer was going to come back. I knew your tumor was going to start growing. I knew something was going to be on the scan. And for your scan to come back clear again," she threw her hands up and she says, "I'm happy, but I'm shocked." I mean, and then later on, she actually called me on a Friday and she says, "Can I take you to lunch on Sunday?" And I said, "You're buying?" You're the one with all the money. So she took me to lunch to her favorite little place, and she asked me, "What is it that you're doing?" Because when you're under the pharmaceutical umbrella,
Yeah.
she can't really ask me that in her office. And I told her everything I was doing, and she was so proud of me. And she told me, she says, "You're the bravest person I know." She said, "And you made the right decision for you." And she came with this gift bag because her and her family had just went to Egypt on a family reunion. And she brought this gift bag with these beautiful things that she brought from Egypt for me as a gift. And it was just so perfect. And then she told me that she's going to hire a naturopathic doctor for her practice that she wants me to sit down and talk to say what I did, because that doctor can tell patients about natural things. Yeah.
We call that the ripple effect in the industry. And as you say in your book, your newfound mission
Yes.
is to make a ripple effect,
Yes.
to have an impact and to share what you've learned so that others can be encouraged as well.
What's interesting to me is when I decided to share my journey, I cannot tell you the calls. I show it to John a lot of times, the calls and the texts and the emails that people did not know that God's medicine even existed. Did not know there was another option. Yeah. So it has been interesting.
If you want to read Lynette Hill's miraculous healing journey, don't miss out on getting your copy of Overcoming Cancer: From Despair and Desperation to Hope, Life, and a Newfound Mission. Again, that, as well as Timebomb with the companion DVD, is available at edensessentials.com as well as skywatchtv.com. Well, we were never going to have enough time to cover everything I wanted to discuss in your book, but thank you so much for coming and having this conversation with us today and sharing your journey with the world. Hopefully, like Jamie said, there will be a ripple.
Just going to say thank you for having me. But I also just wanted to add, if I could, that even though I shared this journey so that people would know God's medicine, in every single one of my videos, I always share about God and how much God loves us. And one of the rewarding things that I've been getting is people messaging me, telling me, because of you speaking about God so much, you brought me back to God, or you brought me to God. And that has been the best thing.
That's the highest praise.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today on Return to Eden. Once again, don't forget to get your copy of Lynette Hill's book, Overcoming Cancer, at edensessentials.com or skywatchtv.com, and we'll be back.